Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast, the place where poetry meets conversation. I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore. And before we get into today's topic, make sure you hit that plus sign so you don't miss an episode. Also, please subscribe to my blog, thebrownssugarcafe.blog. And if you find any value in this episode or any other episodes, make sure you leave a heartfelt review. So, with that being said, let's get to it. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. I hope that you all are doing well. I hope that you all are taking time to make time for yourself. I hope that you all are enjoying the fall so far. But without further ado, we have a special guest, first time guest to the show, friend of the show. I've been on one of his podcasts twice. Without further ado, go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Party people in the place to be. What is good? I am Danny Foxworth. I host 3 podcasts. First one is a baseball podcast called At the Plate with Danny Foxworth. Then I host another podcast called Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth. And I just started a third podcast entitled Growing Up Low Country with Liz and Danny. I'm from Moncks Corner, South Carolina, Charleston born, Roper Hospital baby, 843 representative, and all that good stuff, man. And thank you so much for having me, man. This is like a podcast dream come true for me.
Oh man, I appreciate you coming on, man. I really do. I enjoy being on your podcast those 2 times. And matter of fact, you were on the podcast with me and Charlie on my other podcast, Passive
Yep.
Remote. We did that Christmas that Christmas bracket.
movie tournament. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was a good time, man. We got to figure out another tournament to do to have you back on, man, because that I really enjoyed that. I like when you do the tournaments with other friends of the show, Mike and Gerard.
Yeah.
Do we call them by their old podcast name now? Now that it's officially sunset,
You
or
know,
do
I still do. Because I still listen to their podcast, even though they haven't recorded since like 01.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff. Good stuff,
yeah.
man. Yes, the board of directors.
Yes, sir.
Love those episodes when you all do the tournaments. I remember one I was listening to, I had my wife listening to. It was the one, was it the one about fries? That one.
Oh, yeah, the French fry tournament. Yeah.
Yeah. All of those are good, man, but she really enjoyed that one. I liked it too, man. So what's been going on with you, man? How's your summer been going?
It's been going good, man. Just a lot of working. I finally took some time off to enjoy myself. I took a self-imposed 2-month break from podcasting just because I started back in January of 2023 is when I got
Okay.
my podcast off the ground, and it was at the point where I literally put out a new episode for 72 straight weeks. And I was
Ooh.
like, a brother needs a break.
Yeah.
So I put the car in park for a second, and while I did that, I didn't really do anything podcast related. And then when it came time to pod again, the itch came back.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, man, all right, this you've been away from the mic too long, so let's get this pod back on the road. And I a previous guest that I had on since we last spoke is a lady by the name of Liz Rennie, who she's my
Yeah.
longest childhood friend. We've been friends literally for 40 years. We've known each other since First Baptist Daycare in Moncks Corner.
Yeah.
And that episode got so much great feedback from our friends. They were like, y'all ever thought about doing a podcast together? So I shot the idea to Liz, and I'm like, would you be interested? She was like, let's do it. So that's how Growing Up Low Country with Liz and Danny spawned. We basically just talk about what it was like growing up in the Low Country, hence the title, as
Yeah.
kids. And we put out our first episode at the beginning of August. And that's been a lot of fun.
Oh, man, I didn't know that was out already. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me know.
Yes, sir.
Man. Well, congratulations on your third podcast.
Thank you. Trying to get like you.
Hey, you're right. Hey, I don't ever realize until I'm having a conversation with somebody that I'm like, man, I actually do have 3 podcasts. It's like,
Yeah,
wow. So, congratulations again.
thank you.
I'm looking forward to listening to that episode. How did you get started in podcasting? Like, what was that moment where you, I mean, went from your first podcast to your second one? How did those pretty much develop?
Well, my initial when I first got started got my toe in the podcasting world by being a guest on the aforementioned board meeting podcast. They had me
Yeah.
on for a handful of episodes, and similar to growing up low country with Liz and Danny, I started getting a lot of positive feedback on my guest appearances, and people started asking me, "So when are you going to start your own podcast?" And initially, I wasn't really that wasn't really my goal. I just wanted to be, the left-hander that they call out of the bullpen whenever they need me.
Yeah.
But then the more guest appearances I got under my belt, again, the bigger that itch became. And I'm like, okay, I think I'll start off. I think I'll venture out doing my own podcast. But my thing is, what am I going to talk about? So what I did was for for At the Plate, what I noticed is when I'm on Twitter, a lot of my friends on Twitter, especially specifically a lot of black folks, they baseball is my first love. That's my favorite sport.
Okay.
And I noticed that a lot of my Twitter friends, they follow baseball as well. And not only do they follow baseball, a lot of them rooted for different teams. So I was like, man, I think I might have something here. This was late 2022 when I started noticing this. So once I got the idea that I was going to start a baseball podcast, I started reaching out to these Twitter friends individually via DM. I'm like, I'm going to start a podcast in January. This is the premise for it. And I would love to have you as a guest to talk about your favorite team. Would you be interested? And literally all of them said yes. So I was like,
Wow.
okay, I got something here.
Yeah.
But then I had another idea. Well, I just had all these different ideas for podcast episodes that wouldn't really be a fit for At the Plate. So I was like, you know what? I'll start another podcast. And the thing with getting those ideas was I was looking at what other people were talking about, especially in the black podcast universe. I'm like, let me talk about something else. Because I don't feel like I will really be adding anything different if I'm talking about the same subjects as everybody else.
Right.
So I was like, okay, just had episode ideas. I have a notes app in my phone, and if an idea pops up in my head, I'll just go straight to the notes app, and I'm like, all right, this is a future episode. I'll talk about this. Future episode. I'll talk about this, and that's how Since We Last Spoke came about. And I started both of those podcasts in January, and I also wanted to do the tournament episodes like I did when I would be a guest on the board meeting podcast.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? What better way to do tournament episodes than to bring the two hosts that have me on their podcast? Why not have them on my podcast, and let's keep that tradition going. So man, it really has been a blast. I put out 2 episodes recently, and looking back, I dropped my first episode on January 13th of 2023, and I just recently dropped my 131st episode.
Ooh, congratulations.
Yeah, man, it's crazy thinking that I've put out that much stuff in that amount. It's like little over a year and a half. I'm like, good lord.
Wow. Yeah, cause I remember your first Since We Last Spoke episode, and I remember looking forward to the next one. And it's like once you got into that groove, you just start kicking them out and kicking them out, and I'm like, "Oh, man, another one?"
Yeah,
And it'll be like a week pass, and I'm like, "Oh, man, I hadn't listened to the one from before. I got to catch up." And,
yeah.
quality stuff, man. I love your stories. I love
Thank you.
the guests you have. It's a very, very solid podcast. I really appreciate it, man. Like I said, I've been on it twice. Speaking of, we talked about Hurricane Hugo in one of the episodes.
Hmm.
How did everything go with the tropical storm that just swept the low country. I saw that Monk's Corner got hit pretty bad.
Bro, whoo, man, we got so much rain. And what surprised me was we actually ended up getting more rain than downtown Charleston because like Debbie hit the low country, went and hung out off the coast of the Atlantic
Yeah.
for a little bit, strengthened back up, and then made its act two on the low country. And that it came back on. It made the second landfall on that Thursday.
Yeah.
And at the time, Thursday evening rolls around. I was sitting on the front porch just watching the rainfall, just taking it all in. I didn't think anything of it. I went to bed. I slept through the entire storm. I would get up the next morning. I cut on the news, and there's like local news reporters out in different parts of Monk's Corner talking about how much it flooded. And
Yeah.
I was like, "Wow, really?" And then I looked at my back door. I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, bro, my backyard looked like an infinity pool.
Yeah, I saw the picture, man. I was like, "What?" Just to think that this is just a tropical storm, not even a hurricane.
Yeah. But it sat on the low country and it just hit the parking brake. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna catch a few Z's. I'm gonna just sit here in rain and not move.
Dog, when I saw the pictures from Cane Bay, especially that part that's like right at the cusp of, I
Mhm.
guess you could say the cusp of Monk's Corner, like off of Black Tom Road.
Yep.
I remember growing up as a kid going through those parts, and it didn't dawn on me until I saw the photos and stuff. Like you be riding on those back roads after a good rain, you look over in the woods, and it's a bunch of water, like it's a lake back there.
Mhm.
And I'm just
Yep.
like, how did y'all build all those houses over there where, lack of a better term, it's like a marsh?
Yeah, it's like there's
And
no
did
place
y'all
for the
not
water to go.
right? And I saw some people talking about some type of runoff ponds and things like that. But I just had a flashback of when I was a kid. Just riding, I was like, no, that wouldn't
Mhm.
be enough.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, going through those back roads, man, you after a good rain, you would look over and you couldn't tell me there wasn't like a lake somewhere. Like we wasn't riding past a lake that just had trees in it when I was a kid.
Yeah, you're right.
And so it's just, man, that was sad to see. Man,
Yeah.
I
I mean, we got 22 inches of rain in the span of 5 days. And then on top of that, whenever they showed that Thursday morning when they reported, well, actually, no, it was that Friday morning when they were doing all those news reports. And one person was at the Arby's, and they said the Arby's got hit hard by a possible tornado, which
yeah, I saw that.
turned out there actually was a tornado.
Yeah.
So when I got to work that Friday, I drove by it just to see the damage for myself, and I was taken aback. I was like, "Bro," because I'd never seen any tornado damage in real life, and to see it hit that close to home, I was like, "Man." And the Arby's, I mean, it basically looked like everything that was inside just got thrown out
So yeah,
on the
yeah.
out in the parking lot. It was crazy. And that
Wow.
was really the only building that got touched aside from the Walmart across the street. It got like very minimal damage, but that Arby's got hit real hard.
I've seen the aftermath of a tornado. One hit when I was a kid, and it was in our neighborhood. I don't think it hit any houses, but it hit like areas where there were trees and they were like split and just torn up. But I'll never forget, I was watching the Bulls were playing somebody,
Mhm.
but I was watching the game and I just remember it was like a light rain and it's all of a sudden it was this very heavy rain. And I was like, okay. And it was just very heavy. I could hear the wind. And then after a while it passed. And when it passed, our phone started ringing. My parents were asleep. Our brother and sister were in the house doing something. But phone started ringing. And then my mom come in the room. She was like, how you let us sleep through a tornado? I'm like, a tornado? What are you talking about? And back then we didn't have cell phones with like severe weather alerts and all that type of stuff
Mhm.
because the phone that rang was a house phone.
Yeah.
Um, so it was a Sunday, and I remember going to school the next day, and the bus having to take like a detour through the routes because trees were in the road. Now that I think about it, it was a house that was kind of damaged, but to like what you said, matter of fact, the house right beside it looked like nothing happened,
Man.
which blew my young mind. I was like, well,
Yeah.
if a tornado came through, shouldn't everything be torn up?
Right.
So wow. I'm thankfully it happened when nobody was at Arby's.
Yeah, 'cause it came through at like 3 in the morning. They showed the surveillance footage of it, and then there was a dealership that's right next to the Arby's, and it flipped a truck over.
Man, well, I'm glad you're all right.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Me
that
too.
is yeah. Wow. So speaking of Hurricane Hugo and things like that, like what was life like growing up? What did young
Man,
Danny like to do?
young Danny liked to just go in the woods, go hoot with my friends. I live in a very rural community to this day called it's a section of Monk's Corner called Long Ridge. It's
Oh yeah.
probably about 10 minutes outside of the actual town limits of Monk's Corner. But I love it because it's just super quiet. Literally everybody knows each other in the community. We're pretty much all related. But my young Danny, he enjoyed like hooping with his friends in the summertime, catching crawfish in the ditch, you
Ah,
know,
yeah.
going when ride. I particularly enjoyed riding around with my grandfather. We called him Papa. I think that's where I really developed my wanderlust because in the summertime, when I wasn't in school, if I wasn't at the summer feeding program, I was riding shotgun with him in that old Chevy C10 pickup, and sometimes we would go all around the low country. And I remember we would drive. I was just Highway 52 is the main thoroughfare in Monk's Corner, and
Yeah.
I remember getting on Highway 52 and driving all the way up to Florence to pick up a family member because she had just finished her classes at Francis Marion, and she was coming home for the weekend. So we drove up there to pick her up, and I was like, "Wow, I didn't know Highway 52 drove went this far."
Right?
And that's where I got my sense of travel from. This is the same Papa that was riding with me. He's the Papa that asked who was LL Cool J
Yes.
when I told that story. But yeah, man, I just remember like going to Piggly Wiggly with him, going to Delta Pharmacy, picking up his prescriptions, and we'd go get a vanilla Coke float from the soda fountain at the pharmacy, and spending summers, showing me how to chop and cook okra, and he would he would get the big 20-pound bag of blue ribbon rice, and he would just
Oh yeah.
pick the rice one by one just to make sure that the batch of rice that he had prepared to cook was the best possible batch you can
Wow.
have. But man, just it was just so many great memories, so many. Um, then my grandparents on my mom's side of the family, they lived in Somerville, and the thing I enjoy the most about them, well, one of the things I enjoyed the most is that they had cable.
Oh yeah.
Because where I live, it was so rural that cable wasn't available in our neighborhood yet. I think cable wasn't available in Long Ridge until like late '90s, early 2000s. But I remember spending weekends at my granny and granddaddy's house in Somerville, and that's where my love for baseball came because every night when I would spend the night with them, 7:05, we'd be in front of that big back Magnavox watching Braves games on TBS. And that's how I got introduced to the game of baseball. And I remember, I don't even think I brought this up, but I know some summers and some winters, well, winters especially, I would go to church with them on Sundays, and then right after church, we would go home, we'd change clothes. Actually, no, we would change clothes at the church, and we would hop in the car and we would drive straight to Atlanta and catch an Atlanta Hawks game that Sunday night. And then after the game was over, we come right back to Somerville.
Man.
So that side of the family is the side that really got me immersed in the sports.
Yeah, I can't say that I've ever experienced that growing up. I remember, and I don't know, I mean, I guess it's cool to say this, but I remember when we used to take trips to like Savannah to play the lottery because back then South Carolina didn't have the lottery. So,
Yeah, that's true. Matter of fact, I got my first tattoo in Savannah because tattooing was still illegal in South Carolina.
Right, right.
So I
And it's
remember driving and hitting up, I think it was California Tattoo in Savannah.
wow. Yeah, man. I remember those road trips. They were fun, don't get me wrong, but it seemed like, whenever I had a plan to go play ball or something, I get up that morning, all of a sudden, like, yeah, we about to go. I'm like, do I have to go too? Yeah. And it's like, I mean, it was cool for what it was, but
You
it's
wanted to
nothing
hoop.
like when you plan on playing ball, man, the
Yeah.
next day. And like, especially if y'all had like a game going like the day before and it just happened to get dark and it's like, yeah, we will finish this tomorrow,
Yep.
bunch of trash talking, and all of a sudden it's like you can't show up. So now it's like I don't want to think I'm scared, but I just had, I'm not trying to make an excuse, but I had to go with my
Right.
folks. And like I said,
Yeah,
back then we didn't have cell phones.
that's true.
And so
Did y'all have the rotary phone too?
oh yeah, man, we had a fancy rotary phone. I remember it was like a pearl white color, and the rotary part was the gold and had gold trim, and it
Mhm.
was one of those ones you sat down like that and you picked up, and we had the on the wall joint too, the little rectangle one with the long
Yeah.
cord. Yeah, we
Yep.
had that too.
Boy, I tell you, we are dating ourselves, but man,
What?
I high key want another rotary phone just to put in the house just
Me
for
too.
decoration.
Yeah, me too. I mean, they look dope when you think about it. Even back then, I thought they were cool. I just remember the first time I actually had to use one, and like when you messed up, that's it. You had to hang the phone up and dial the number from the
Yep.
beginning all over again.
It was not boy, dialing on a rotary was not
Yeah,
efficient in the slightest.
it was not, man. And I even remember before there was call waiting, you call somebody house and they're on the phone, it's just like this beeping noise. And I've
Yep.
been embarrassed before being on the phone and somebody in my family, aunt or uncles, well, mostly my aunts, trying to call, talk to my moms, and they have the operator beep in. And it's like, yes. I was like, oh man. Such and
Yep.
such is trying to get through. Please hang up the phone. And then when we got internet,
That
dial up,
dial up.
that was crazy. That's when
Yep.
the whole two line things became a thing because you had to have two lines. If you were doing something on the internet, you had to.
Of
Because
course.
if you shut all phone calls down when you plug that internet, and you know how addictive just imagine it's addictive now, but just imagine when it was new to us.
Yeah.
Like we were online trying to look up anything we could.
Yeah, downloading a song, it take like 14 hours to download, and you crossing your
Yeah.
fingers, hoping and praying that mom doesn't pick the phone up to
Hoping.
disconnect it, and
Start
you
all
gotta
over.
start
Yeah.
from scratch. Boy, that was the pits, bro.
Well, I remember them days.
Boy, I do not miss dial-up. Boy, these kids
Not
got
me
it
either.
good.
Real good, man. Real good. It's so crazy when I come across people that still have like a AOL email address. I'm like, man, that still
Yeah.
works? Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Man,
Man, old dial-up.
yeah, you alluded to it earlier, about the wanderlust and traveling. I noticed you do a lot of traveling, and I think that's pretty dope, man. Um,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like wherever you want to go, you just go and do it, man. That was something that I wish I did more of because I remember there were some things that I wanted to go to and I just didn't want to roll by myself. And then when I finally got out of that, I was like, man, this isn't bad at all. Like I was tripping. How do you get into that? I guess how do you make the decision to where you're going to travel and when? Is it like pre-planned or well, of course stuff like, events and stuff like that? Or is it just like a thing you like, hey, it's the weekend, I'm gonna go here or there, or you could just be chilling and all of a sudden the urge comes on. I mean, how does that work?
I normally pre-plan it.
Okay.
I plan it usually about a month in advance
Oh,
at the
nice.
very least.
Yeah.
So, these, trips I got some trips lined up. 2 out of the 3 are relate or, have baseball tied into baseball. So,
Nice.
I just recently took a trip to Cincinnati over the weekend, and that was a lot of fun. Just taking in, downtown and making my way around, taking taking the light rail around the city. That was cool. Just exploring different means of getting to where I need to get
Nice.
instead of Ubering it all the time.
Yeah.
Like when I got into the airport, I just took the transit bus from the airport to the city, and it was about a 25-minute drive, and it was real cool. I think it was like me and one other person on that bus, and then again, like I said, with taking the streetcar, there's a streetcar that basically runs. The pattern runs basically around the heart of downtown Cincinnati, and riding that is absolutely free. So that was awesome. And then and of course, whenever I go to a city, I always got to hit up the art museum because I'm passionate about art,
Yeah. Yeah.
and their art museum is incredible. It's awesome.
Have you ever been there before? Or this was your first time?
No, I've been there before. My sister actually lived there like very briefly,
Okay. Okay.
about probably about 15 years ago.
Oh, so this
And
is like a new place.
I
Yeah.
visited her a couple of times, but yeah, it's changed a lot since then. But that was a lot of fun. That was a quick day trip, and then in the beginning of September, I'm going to Pittsburgh for the weekend. I'd never been there, but their ballpark is like at the top of my sports bucket list. So I'm gonna take in Pittsburgh. That's always a place I wanted to visit because it just always seemed like a a cool city.
Yeah. Me
And
too.
then on
Yeah.
top of that, one of my good friends from high school, she lives out there, and I hadn't seen her since high school, so we're gonna reconnect. So that element of it is super dope to me. And then in October, I'm heading out west to Oakland to see some family members. They actually came down here back in June during Father's Day weekend, and some of them I actually met for the first time. So that
Oh,
was a very dope experience. So after they came down here, I was like, you know what, let's do like a home and home series. So
yeah.
since y'all came down here, I'll come out to Oakland and kick it with y'all. So I'm October, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh man, that's dope. The part that really stuck out to me about that is that y'all planned to get together and it wasn't like a funeral to where y'all
Yeah.
got together and stuff. Cause it seems like that's how we kind of get into that comfort zone of, yeah, we see you, da da da, let's hook up, and then we don't make plans. And then
Hmm.
next time we see our family, unfortunately, it's like at a funeral.
Yeah, and we talked about that, and we are like, you know what? This is very intentional now that we meet up each other and not meet up whenever it's a tragedy in the family. Let's meet up whenever we meet up. No, not because something bad happened, because just meet up because genuinely want to see each other and catch up
Yeah.
and make up
Yeah.
for lost time.
Yeah, cause man, my cousins and I, we started doing that. It's time for us to do another meetup, but we started doing meetups because it seems like you don't realize until you get older that the reason why you saw your cousins and stuff as much growing up is because your parents were always going to visit each other or going here and there. That was
Hmm.
one thing my mother always did. She made sure she went to visit people. So I have like experiences and conversations with like her aunts and uncles and her cousins because she made sure we went there. Even older people who had a part in raising her, she would always go visit them and take us with her. So that's something that I don't think I personally don't do enough of, and trying to do better of it. COVID just kind of threw everything off. I was
That's
thinking the
true.
other day, I was like, it's some people that I haven't seen in a while. And I'm like,
Hmm.
something I was like, why is that? I just see these people all the time. It's like, COVID. And then
Yeah.
after that, it just kind of became normal not to see them as often, which was just kind of weird. So after I thought about that the other day, I'm like, I got to be more intentional about making these visits, or at least
Hmm.
say, hey man, come check me out because I that was a rough time for like a lot of us, and even though it's quote unquote over, it's like we're still having those residuals. It's certain things that we do different.
100%.
Yeah, certain things that we do different, even mentally. It's
Mhm.
like certain
Oh,
thoughts we
man.
have about stuff is kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but it's like I like to travel too, but traveling still feels different. Like I was on the plane for the first time this year. We went to Chicago, which I hate I didn't go to the art museum. We went to so many other different things. I went to the National Writing Museum. That was pretty dope.
Dope.
But I didn't make it to the art museum, but we did a lot of stuff. But that was my first time on the plane since COVID, and it was just kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's just like on the way there, somebody just had a nonstop cough, and it was just like, man,
Mhm. You just immediately your antenna go up.
yeah, and it's like stuff like that before you probably wouldn't even notice.
Mhm.
I don't think we'll ever fully feel like we used to. In some respects, it's a good thing because even though it was a bad time, a lot of things positive did come out of the pandemic. Even though sad to say we lost some people,
Yeah.
people lost jobs and devastating things like that. But the conversations I've had with some people, it actually gave them a push to do things that they have been holding back from doing. A lot of people start taking life more seriously
Yeah.
during
Well,
that
man,
time.
dude, let me tell you. I'm so glad you mentioned that cuz I literally was thinking about how the pandemic really shifted my life during that time period. So, I had a real bad I had a health scare. I think I talked about that on one of my first episodes since we
Yeah,
last
I
spoke.
remember that. Yeah.
But I was having these headaches and I could not figure out what was wrong with me. And so I finally said, I'm going to the doctor. And when the doctor sat down with me, he was like, dude, your numbers are almost in stroke territory. Like, you really need to get a handle on your health right now. And, shout out to my doctor, shout out to Dr. Lloyd. He shot straight with me. He was like, look, man, I want to see, I'm sure there's things that you want to do in life and there's goals you want to set. But if you continue jeopardizing your health like this, there might not be any future plans for you to do because you're just being lackadaisical about your health. And I was like, you know what? He's right. And so I was diligent about getting my health together. And so I just like watched what I ate. Well, I mean, which I still do,
Yeah.
but I started incorporating riding a bike around the neighborhood, just like every day for at least 45 minutes. And I was just daily, just getting after it on the bike, riding around the neighborhood. And it's funny now, I don't really do it now, but whenever like I'd be in the barber shop and people like the elderly people would be walking, they're like, "Man, you don't be riding your bike no more?" I was like, "Man," so they actually like were watching my
Yeah.
progress. And ultimately I lost like 26 pounds and
Dang. Yeah.
eventually all my numbers came back to normal. And then on top of that, just aside from health, I was in this house and we're on lockdown and I was just taking inventory of the house. Like it was a house, but like it wasn't a home. Like I'm looking at the walls and everything,
Yeah.
like there's nothing on the walls. Everything is just drab. Like I'm just living there, but it's not home. So then COVID really pivoted COVID really pivoted my spending habits. So all the money that I was blowing like on kicks and t-shirts, I started I started going to Lowe's. Like like my front porch was just plain Jane naked. Next thing you know, I'm making trips to Lowe's to get mulch. I'm buying knockout rose bushes. I plant them in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm buying fertilizer. I'm buying hummingbird feeders. I'm like, bro, what have I become? But I'm like, man, you know what? I like this. I like this. This maturation process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I started. Yeah, and I think that's when my itch for buying art really started. And actually, it was I'll tell you who really jump started my sweet tooth for art. It was seeing Preach Jacobs
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
looking at his IG and looking at all the stuff he had on his wall. I'm like, I got to get like this dude.
For real.
And I had the chance to tell him that. I was like, man, dude, you have no idea how much of an impact you made on me from an artistic standpoint, just making my house look less bland. And between the art and then just like buying plants every weekend, I got that from my mom. So it was like she would go every Saturday. She would go to Lowe's and just go in the plant section and see what was on the clearance rack. And
Oh
man,
yeah.
once she put me on game, it was off to the races, bro. It's to the point now. I'm doing my best to not go to the clearance rack every Saturday. I'm like, bro, you don't need no more plants, bro. What are you doing? But man, it's been, the pandemic. In hindsight, it's really been advantageous for me. It really made me shift my focus in a
Yeah.
positive way, and I am thankful for that. I ain't even gonna sit here and lie to you.
Yeah, and I think that's for a while people were kind of hesitant about saying that, but in the grand scheme of things, when you think about it, like there, even though, like I said, it was horrible, there was some good that came out of it. There
Yeah,
was some, like, even I remember the pitch, like the Earth, man, like seeing pictures, like California didn't have any smog for
no
the first
smog. It
time.
was Yeah, that was crazy.
I mean, different trees were able to really bloom, and flowers and different things like you normally didn't see. It just it was a time where just things got still. People paid attention, like you said. I've had conversation with people, they started paying more attention to their health. They started paying more attention to the way they live. That's why the price of lumber went up, because everybody was doing all these DIY projects, especially like
Yeah,
backyard stuff. Because, like, okay, we're here now. We normally just go to work, do whatever, come back home, chill or whatever, and pretty much clean up the house, but not really taking time to put stuff on the walls, or what I'm saying, do stuff in the yard, just enough to keep it neat. But like you said, it's not really a home. It's just like a dwelling place. This is where I live, but it's not making it a home. But now, I mean, you got people who actually take the time to enjoy their backyard.
yeah,
Some people got nice backyards and never really sat out there, but that kind of forced people to look at, like, man, you know what? I do have kind of a nice backyard, a nice space. Put some
yeah.
chairs out here, do a little something.
One of the biggest compliments I ever received. Mom came over to the house and we just sat on the front porch one Sunday afternoon, and she was just taking stock of all the plants and stuff I had hanging. And the hummingbirds are coming to the feeder, and like they were flocking to the feeder that particular
Wow.
day. And she was like, you know what? She goes, sitting on your front porch lowers my blood pressure.
Wow.
I was like, man, that's all right. I was like, man, when mom gives me a compliment
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, I was like, bro, she didn't just say like your front porch looks nice. She said, this sitting out here lowers my blood pressure. I was like, that's exactly what my aim was.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Man.
man, that
What?
boy, that thing hit me in the gut, man.
Yeah, that hit me in the gut. I was like, wow. Wow. Yeah, man, it's when you could create that space, and especially like a space like that outside, it's nothing like it, man.
Yeah.
And I love outside, so maybe I'm biased, but I mean, shoot.
Oh, I do too. I do too.
Now you got me wanting to get a hummingbird feeder, man. Man, that's crazy, because I was wondering the other day. I was like, I haven't seen a hummingbird in real life in a very long time. So I
Yeah.
wonder if I get a feeder, if they'll come, or I don't know. Hey, it's worth a
Yeah.
try.
Yeah, they'll flock to it. It's good cheap entertainment just sitting on the front porch watching hummingbirds go to the feeder.
Before I let you get out of here, man, what's one thing about you that maybe not many people know that you wish they knew?
Man, that's a great question. Um, One thing that people I wish people knew about me that they don't know about me. You know what? I'm actually pretty good on walking on stilts.
Word?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I learned that from my mama because she was good walking on stilts.
Wow.
Because she told me when she was a kid, she had gotten a pair of stilts and I believe she got a pogo stick. And it was one Christmas I think I got the pogo stick and my sister got the stilts. And we switched me and my sister switched them. So she had the pogo stick and I was trying to use the stilts. And Mama lived next door and she was like, "Man, let me show you how to do them things." And she was like, "Hand them here." She got them, dude. I mean, just like a fish to water. She got on them stilts and she walked across the entire front yard. And I'm like this woman is in her like late 60s, and this is like effortless. I was like, Please, master, teach me your ways." And she showed me, and I got the hang of it. And I was like, man. So I remember one summer, the following summer, when my friends came over, we were hooping. And I was like, man, y'all stay right there. And I went and got them stilts, and man, they lost their mind. I was like, man, all because of man. She showed me how to walk on stilts. To this day, I still think about that sometimes. I'm like, man, she really showed me how. I never knew that was a hidden talent that she had until mom got us those stilts for Christmas, and she was just like, hand them here. I'm gonna show y'all something. And she showed us, and then she showed me, and then I showed my friends, and they were like, yo, I was like, y'all want to try? They were like, we good.
Nah, yeah, yeah. Man, I would have never guessed that was something you would say. That's pretty dope. And
Yeah, man.
I would have been like your friends. I've seen some, but I was like, I don't know about this, man.
Yeah. And I don't blame them one bit.
It was great chopping it up with you. Gotta have
Likewise.
you back again. Before you get out of here, let the people know how they can check out your podcast, how they can contact you, how they can support what you're doing. Anything you want to let the people know.
All right. Well, my 3 podcasts, which are At the Plate with Danny Foxworth, Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth, and Growing Up Low Country with Liz and Danny, you can find them on all streaming platforms. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Danny Foxworth 843. You can find all the videos for all the episodes of all of those podcasts on that channel. You can follow me on IG, which is also at Danny Foxworth 843, and on Twitter, which is also at Danny Foxworth 843. But the Foxworth is only one O in Foxworth on Twitter because it wouldn't allow I reach my character limit. So it's FOXWRTH 843. You can find me on all 3 of those platforms that way. And man, Terrence, thank you so much for having me, man. This was a lot of fun.
Oh man, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming on. Like I said, I got to have you back on.
Likewise.
Yeah, man. This was long overdue. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I
I
appreciate
have
you too, man.
I have Danny's information in the show description, so make sure you check out his podcast. Make sure you follow him. And before I get out of here, just want to let you guys know to always remember, keep pushing forward. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and this is the place where poetry meets conversation. Hit that follow button and turn on your notifications so you won't miss an episode. Check out my blog, thebrownsugarcafe.blog. Also connect with me on Instagram at thebrownsugarcafe. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, remember, keep pushing forward.